questions are there. So I'll answer a few questions, then we'll go to the next sloka. One question is, in the episode 11 of the Master of the Mind talks, you have told that if one member of a family attains the status of Jivan Mukta, all the other members of that family will be redeemed. What happens to their individual karma? Samchita, Prarabdha, Agami karma. And the other members of the family have not done any sadhana. They continue to be very materialistic. How is it possible for those people to be redeemed? This is the question. You do sadhana, you redeem yourself in your family. How do others members get redeemed when they have not done any sadhana? They are only busy in their materialistic ways is the first question. Let me see. I never said they will be redeemed by tomorrow morning. I never said they will be redeemed within half a year or 1 year. Yesterday also somebody else sent me a message. I am doing everything, but my husband is not interested at all in the spiritual things. He's very materialistic. Now my alone changing, will it be of any use? Because I also feel bad for my family members. So the thing is that, who is the family member? First of all, you should ask a question to yourself. That is why Shankaracharya says, Kastvam koyam kutamayataha, kame janani kome tata. Who are you? Who am I? Where have we come from? Who is the father? Who is the mother? In this birth, some relations have come to you by virtue of your previous associations in previous births. So therefore, these relationships are relationships which are not made in this birth for the first time. These have been coming for a long time. We keep doing change of roles. Then what happens? One person also amongst this group of people who are together, for many births they are coming together, if changes and becomes, they say, all paryapta kama is the word used, fulfilled, completely fulfilled in life. No desires, no sorrow, no worries, no anxiety, completely lives a very peaceful life. Then what will be the effect on the others? First, they will not like it, they will not enjoy it, they will resist it, all that will happen. That is the first step. Then what will happen? After some time, when they see that you are always happy, you're always blissful, come what may, you're never anxious. With good news, your BP does not go up and down, or bad news, BP or sugar does not go up and down. You're always at peace. Slowly, in some of them, curiosity will start. What is this? My wife is so always peaceful. Whatever I say, she is never affected. Good happens, she is not affected. Bad happens, she is not affected. Everything, she is peaceful. How did she manage to become like that? Then slowly the curiosity will begin in them. It may not happen immediately. It may happen after some time. But sometime this thought will get into them by virtue of associations. And then, if not in this birth, this thought will lead them to liberation in some other birth. So you don't have to worry about liberating them all right now. You worry about your own liberation for the time being. If you get it right, someday or the other, it will go into others' minds also. And it may not happen by tomorrow morning, but it will come someday. This way, the Upanishads say that the one who has redeemed or is a Brahmagyani in his family, there will never be a person who is not a Brahmagyani. It does not mean that will happen today, because this family has been formed only today. But we have been related from many, many births together. Therefore, if you go on like this, another few births later down the line, those people, those members also might develop this idea. The seed has been sown because of your behavior. And eventually it will all lead to their redemption also. So it is not today, it is over a period of time. That is what you have to understand. Second thing they were asking, that what happened to the karma, sanchita, prarabdha, agami. I also got another interesting message. It's not just this paper message. I get electronic messages from around the world and they hear about these things. And they said, Swami, I have done all kinds of things in my life, at least whatever I remember of this life. Previous lives I don't even remember. But I've done all kinds of things. Now I feel bad that time I should have offered all this to you. Now all that would have become karma for me, isn't it? What shall I do now? If I offer now all that to you, will my karmas get cancelled? That was the question that person was asking. Then I told him, after you eat something, can you take it out in the same way? Not possible, I said. Oh, he got depressed. Swami, this is very depressing. I can't offer it all back to you. I said, no. Then what is the redemption, he asked. And I said, the redemption is you become a jivana mukta, you become a jnani. What happens to jnani? Will you not suffer the consequences? You will. But then you are not affected by it. See, there are two things. One is pain and another is suffering. Pain may be real. Suffering is unreal. Somebody, small needle, oh, how much noise they make for taking one injection. You look at their drama in the hospital, you will see. Close eyes, shout, people have to hold their legs and hands to just give a small injection to them. Suffering is too much for them. Though pain is the same, their body will undergo the same needle prick as anybody else's body will undergo. Same size needle, same medicine, same nurse. But one will create a drama out of it, one will just happily, simply smile and take it. So what is happening? Pain will be there, but suffering will not be there. The pain part of it is only very, very small part. So if you think suffering is a football, the pain in it is not even the size of a golf ball. The golf ball is the actual pain you are going through. The rest is your imaginary suffering. If this happens to me, what will happen to my children? If this happens to me, what will happen to my husband? If this happens to me, what will happen to my business? If this happens to me, what will happen to the future of my institutions, my organization? That suffering makes the 80% of the thing. The pain is only the 20%. In fact, they say that all these painkiller and all that we take to reduce our pain, they don't even work 50%. In that only we feel relief. So it only means that half of it is our imagination. So if you have this much pain and then they give you a painkiller which is only 50% effective, rest is only powder. In that, you imagine that you are getting cured. A doctor says, the placebo effect it is called. Doctor said, you'll be fine. And you believe the doctor and suddenly you start becoming fine. So what happens? The body may undergo the sufferings of the karma. The mind will not undergo. Mind will remain happy, peaceful, enjoying whatever comes. It just smiles it away saying, it's a part of life, let it be. The attitude is different of a Jivan Mukta. That is why when Ramana Maharshi also suffered with cancer, but he never believed that he is suffering because the body is suffering, he said. Ramakrishna Paramsa suffered with cancer for whatever reason. And when somebody told him that, Swamiji, everybody was crying that he is suffering, and one disciple saw that he is not suffering, he is only acting that he is suffering. Within him he is happy. Then what happened? He told, this fellow has caught me red-handed. He told, this fellow has caught me red-handed, that I am actually not suffering, but I am only acting as if I am suffering. So they don't suffer. And then best is our Bidi Baba, I call him. He used to sell Bidis earlier. And later, by his Guru's grace and his own effort, he became a realized servant. He told, when he got cancer, people said, see, you are a big Brahmagyani, you also got cancer. He said, I have not got cancer, I am the cancer. Because he's identified himself with everything in the universe, including the cancer cells. He says, I am the cancer, I am not getting cancer, I am the cancer, he said. So these Brahmagyanis, did they not go through some difficulties? Yes, they did. Did it affect them? No. So this is the idea of Brahmagyana. Your karmas will be there, it does not affect you. However, what will happen in the future, whatever you do now, will not create any more karmas for you because you are not the doer. You realize that you are just a witness. Atma Sakshi. Everything else is happening as per the law of the nature. Krishna says, Prakritehi kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha. All the actions of the world is happening according to the gunas that are playing their game. Little is, as an Atman, I have not much to do here. Mind and body are playing. They get influenced by somebody's good talk, depressed by bad talk, because as long as body and mind we think body and mind is reality, we get dragged along with them. Otherwise, as individual self, the divine supreme self, we are unattached, unaffected. Like the mirror never gets sad if somebody comes and frowns at it. It just reflects the frown back. Nor mirror becomes happy if somebody smiles at it. Mirror is mirror. When smiling and surrounding people are gone, it is back to its original, untainted, untouched self. That is our true self. The Atman does not get tainted. That is why yesterday we took the example of space. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. Space does not get affected by what happens in the space. Space remains space only. The activities are happening within the space, but then space is not changing because of the activities. So this is a very sukshma thought. So what happens to their karma? To encourage, our Upanishads say, Kshiyante chasya karmani, they say. For such a person who becomes a Brahmagyani, his karmas are all destroyed. There are three kinds of karmas, they say. The karmas that we have done in the past, what we are doing now. What we have done in the past, they are going to show their result now, in the present. What we are doing in the present, they are going to show results in the future. So there are karmas which have already started showing results now, and there are karmas which are going to show results in the near future. And whatever we are doing now will go and show results in the far future. So these three types of karmas are there. That is what it is: sanchit karma, prarabdha and agami. Sanchita are those which have already done, but they have not yet started bearing results. The consequences have not started appearing, but they are there, like an arrow, the quiver of the person, a bowman who has a quiver filled with arrows which he has not used. But they all will come now, sometime or the other. They are there. One are those which we are undergoing already. Whatever good, bad, ugly we are experiencing today, they are already in motion. And one is that which if we do now, we are going to get it in the future. On this alone we have control now. We can choose to do or not to do. What has already gone, the arrow that has been shot, it's prarabdha. Because you took it out from the quiver, from the sanchit karma, put it on your bow and shot it. Now the arrow is gone. Wherever it is going, it's going to hit the target. You can't stop it. So that is the karma that you have taken out from the past and you are experiencing today. They are prarabdha. This cannot get destroyed. You have to undergo this. There is no choice. Now there are some karmas which are still to bear fruits and some karmas we are going to shoot now in the future. These two you have some control on. Do you have your ask question? In these two also you have control only on one, which is one you are going to shoot next. You can choose, I am not the doer and therefore none of these karmas will affect you. A jnani is not the doer because jnani does not identify himself with the body which involves in the action or the mind which involves in the thinking. Jnani identifies himself with the Atman, which is simply a witness. Therefore, it is not as if it is somebody else doing and not me. That is the kind of idea Jnani lives with. Because of that, anything that he does is no more going to be his karma. It won't affect him at all. So going forward, it won't affect him. But whatever is already in the motion, he has to go through. And whatever is stored up in the past, that even if it comes in the future now, the Jnani is not going to be affected. So like I told you that all your desires are fulfilled when you have become a Jnani. It does not mean that all the desires, the long list that you had from your childhood, from a shoe to the watch, to the TV, to the laptop, to the car and the house, and all will get fulfilled. Idea is that you will not, all desires get destroyed. It means you don't have those desires anymore. So if those karmas which are coming also, you are not bothered about it. So if you don't bother about something, it is equivalent to it doesn't exist. You don't bother about it. So it doesn't affect you, so it does not exist. So subtle meaning of karmas getting destroyed is, even if they come to fruition, you don't suffer. And even if they exist, or if they'll come in the future to make you suffer, you don't care. If it comes, yada yat kartumayati, as and when it comes, tat krutva tishtate sukham, you will experience it and be happy. You have no idea that it should not come. See, all these problems, that is how these people are prospering. Those people who tell you, do this puja and this will be corrected, that will be cured, this will be done, that will be done. So does this help or not? You will ask. Yes, it does help to some extent, like going to a doctor and taking some medicine and probably relieving yourself. But truth is that the real problem is your association of the mind, the suffering. Pain is not such a big problem. Pain can be cured. How? By medicine. But the suffering cannot be cured. Suffering cannot be cured. That is in your mind. If you choose not to suffer, nobody can make you suffer. And there is no medication for removing your suffering. There is only medication to cure your ailment. That's why Buddha says, you are hit by not one but two arrows. First arrow that hit you was the actual arrow. The second is an imaginary arrow of suffering that has hit you. First arrow we can remove. Second arrow nobody can remove. Because that is an imaginary arrow and you will suffer. So your suffering is your imagination. Your karma will bring karma prabhava. Nobody can stop it. See, God very rarely interferes into this. It's like a principal who keeps interfering with the school affairs. Every now and then he keeps giving exceptions. Then there will be a mess in the school. Exceptions are not rules. Rules are rules. Exceptions are exceptions. Once in a blue moon some exception has happened. It does not mean that it will happen to everybody every time. So don't go by that. So therefore don't bother too much about that. The best thing is you work it out for yourself. What is the working it out? You realize you're Brahman, you realize that you're divine, and you'll get rid of suffering of the karma. When then karma comes, does not come, doesn't matter. Ramakrishna Paramsa's disciples went and told him, you got throat cancer, you're not able to eat, why don't you go and ask Mother Kali? After all, she talks to you, you have done so much bhakti all your life, you deserve some better treatment from her. She should cure you of this. So he said, I am not interested. But the disciples kept on saying. So he went and told Mother, Mother, not me, but these disciples are bothering me. They're saying, why don't I ask you to cure my throat cancer, because they're feeling that I'm not able to eat anything. The Mother Kali said, I'm eating from so many mouths every day. If I don't eat from your mouth, what is the loss? So be quiet. And he came and told his disciples, this is what Mother Kali told. I'm eating through so many mouths. If I don't eat from one mouth like yours, what is the loss that I have? That is the idea of a Brahmagyani. I am not this body. Whatever happens to the body is a part of it. Yesterday we learned Sharira goes through all 6 phases. Nobody can stop it. Nobody can say this should not happen to me. I should not grow old. I should not die. Nobody can say that. So what is the big deal about it? And you are not the one who dies. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Then why should you bother? You'll have to, you know that you don't die. You were there before, you are here now, you will be there next birth also. And God knows how many more births you will be there till you realize it. Therefore, they won't be unduly attached to anything. Their suffering which comes from the thinking that they are the bodies will disappear. So if you can lead such a life within your family of ignorant fellows, and you show that there is a change in you and your way of looking at life is totally different, if not today they may think you're a gone case, useless. But someday, somewhere the curiosity will come in them that look at us all. That person alone seems to be happy. We all are suffering all the time. That person is unaffected. Something is right about what he is doing or what she is doing. This curiosity will come in them at some point in time. May not be in this birth also. Maybe this impression will go into their mind and may germinate in another birth. And from that they may continue and lead a life of purity. So these lives, look at the life of the universe. What is your life? Not even a wink of an eye for the universe. What is so much we get bothered only because of the body. Only we think we are the body, we have fed it, cleaned it, decorated it, cared for it, pampered it. So much we have done that we cannot think of it as anything other than the body. Now suddenly if we tell you that no, you are not the body, so stop bothering too much about it, just maintain the body. Narada Bhakti Sutta says, Sharira avadharana. Because you are bearing a body, you have to look after it. You have a car to travel, you have to look after the car, service it, put fuel, check brakes. That's all it is. Beyond that, don't give attention to the body is what the idea of Vedantin. Just give attention only to the extent of using it as a vehicle. So this is what happens to the Brahmagyani. His karmas, whether they are there or not there, he doesn't care. If they come by the law of the universe, it has to manifest in front of you. It will manifest. You will go through it without getting affected mentally. Physically, whatever happens, happens. Our problem is coming from where? If something happens to me physically, then what will happen? Will I have to suffer through some disease? Will I suffer through some accident? Will my people leave me? Will I lose relationships? All these are related to your body. That has got nothing to do with the real you. So get this fundamental truth right. You are not just this body. Body is yours, but you are not the body. Car is yours. You are not the car. The body is yours. And body will undergo decay, suffering, whatever. And the karmas of the previous birth will show up someday or the other. It's not possible that they will die. But to a jnani, what they say is that as if you have roasted the seed in fire, like those karmas become ineffective. What is ineffectiveness of karma? Whether they germinate, whether they don't germinate, you don't care. So you can't go to Brahman with a long list of all the wrongs that you have done and say, please cancel all these things because I'm about to become Brahmagyani. Nothing like that will happen. Because that list doesn't matter to Brahman. It doesn't care. You also don't care. That's what he will tell you. Don't care. My family is like that. Don't care. My friends are like that. Don't care. You will tell, don't care. We cannot go and change everybody. You change yourself, everything will change for you. Your attitude will change. That is what I'm saying. A Brahmagyani is not any different. This idea of long beard, mustache, orange robes and bhasma and rudraksha, that is not Brahmagyani. Don't get into the wrong conception of Brahmagyani. Unfortunately, for years and years, it has been told to us, all those who are spiritual are what kind of people? Longer the beard, more spiritual. No beard, no spiritual at all. Half beard, half spiritual. This is not the way it is. Put bhasma, vibhuti and all those things and put rudraksha malas, plenty of them, and wear big orange robes and roam around. That is not spirituality. One sentence definition of spirituality, fearlessness is spirituality. If you have any fear left in you, be it about your health, be it about wealth, be it about relationships, possessions in the world, be it about the future, be it about your reputation, name, be it about your finally old age and death. If there is any fear left in you, it clearly means that you have not attained spirituality. So what about bhajans and this? No, these are all processes to reach there. You take a taxi from here to go to the railway station. Then you take a train to go to your home. So auto or taxi from here to railway station is first step. Train from railway station to your home platform is second step. From your home platform to your home, another taxi or a bus is the third step. Then you reach your home. So till there is fear in us, know for sure that we are not spiritual people. We are acting like spiritual people, that's all. You're trying to be spiritual. If there is any fear in you, it is not spirituality. Even the fear, what will happen to that karma if it comes back? Let it come back. Let it come back. We will deal with it when it comes. So like that, one person's attitude becomes different. That is the idea of being a Brahmagyani or a spiritual person. Somebody asked one more question. What is the idea of a Brahmagyani? This is the idea. They are fearless people. Why they are fearless? Because nothing matters to them. If something belongs to you, then you fear they will lose it. If someone is yours, then you fear that that person may leave you. If something you own, that is when you are afraid that you may not have it tomorrow. You have no such ideas. You have no such ideas. That is Brahmagyana. So what about, should I study or not study? You study as a part of your duty. It's a part of your role. God has given you a role to play. Just play the role and be happy. What about husband and wife? Should I live with him? Should I divorce him? No need to do anything. Just continue live with this new attitude that nothing matters. Ultimately, everything is Brahman. Everything is under control. Whatever looks out of control also is actually under control only. And you live with that attitude, your suffering will disappear. One story is there of Mohajit. Mohajit was a prince. And look at this correctness of the understanding of the whole kingdom. So he went to a rishi in the forest and said, please give me some upadesha about Brahmagyana. What is your name? My name is Mohajit, he said. Mohajit means who has conquered all the attachments and delusions, moha. He said, your name only is Mohajit. Are you really Mohajit? He said, not only me, my whole kingdom is Mohajit. My parents are Mohajit. My wife is Mohajit. Worker is Mohajit. Everybody is totally detached. This rishi couldn't believe, this saint. He said, I never heard of a place like this. Let me go and check. If I really find them all correct, then I will give you further my upadesha. So he says, give me your royal robe, what he was wearing, and he soaks us into some animal blood and takes it to the kingdom. And goes to the gate of the palace and shouts, the Prince Mohajit has been killed, Prince Mohajit has been killed. So there is a maid servant who is cleaning the path. He goes to her, Mohajit has been killed, Mohajit has been killed. She said, so what do you want? He said, I want to see the king. He said, see, everybody who is born is going to die. He's died today, big deal. Wait, let me finish my cleaning the path, then I will go and inform the king, she said. He said, how come she's not bothered about her princess died? And she goes on cleaning, and after she finishes her cleaning, she says, now come, I will take you to the king. So he takes to the king, saying that your son Mohajit has been killed. He says, what is this world after all? It's a night's shelter. Soul is a pilgrim. They come, they stay in a shelter for the night, and then they go away. Who can stop them? Who can make them stay longer than this? He had come in our shelter. He lived for so long and left. So that is fine. We are okay with it. We'll deal with it. So this saint is now shocked. He says, king also has such a cool attitude towards his prince's death. Then he goes to the wife of this king. She tells what is there. In a nest, the birds fly away after they grow. What can you do about it? Should you cry about it? So leave it at that. Now this saint is further shocked. The mother of the prince also is not disturbed by this. Then he goes to the wife, thinking at least wife will be disturbed because she has to live with him. And she says, what is their husband and wife are like two logs of the wood. In the flow of the river, they come together and then they part. Beyond that, what is the nature of life? She also says. Then this saint thinks this kingdom is definitely free of all attachments. Death and birth of anybody, including the prince, is not affecting them. They say, we will deal with it. Okay. Now what he does, he thinks that this is not going to work. Let me test that prince whether he is also full of dispassion or not. So he goes back to the forest and tells him that an enemy has attacked your kingdom and everybody has been killed, including your father, mother and wife. He says the whole world is a dream. In a dream, who is killed, who is not killed, who lives, who does not live. Leave all this. Teach me Brahmopadesha you give me. So the saint says you don't need any Brahmopadesha. You are Brahman as you are because you have no delusion, no desires, no attachments. You are Brahman as you are. That is the idea of a Brahma-jnana. You will not be attached. Don't pay too much attention to this body and body relations. Just do what you have got to do and be happy with that. That is all that is in your hands. Beyond that, there is nothing in your hands. Beyond that, anything that you attach yourself to, you will be miserable. Other people may or may not be. The first person to suffer is you. So to that idea only you do. Don't worry about others. You just do your part. If you realize, it will definitely inspire them, at least create curiosity in them. They will also start bothering about, should I also become like her or him, because they are always happy. That is the nature of the Brahma-jnani. And your karmas are not going to bother you, whether they come, don't come. They come today, they'll come after 10 years. You are not bothered. Because karmas are happening to the body and the mind. You are none of them. So why should you bother? That is how you will live it. So beyond that, that is the Brahma-jnana, the idea of Brahma-jnana. If sound is always present, can there be ever something called silence? Because silence does not exist. No, silence alone exists. Om is the modification of that silence. We call it Om exists because we are incapable of understanding silence. That is why sound is needed for us. If a teacher is silent in the class, nobody understands anything because we are used to this Vaikhari Vani, Madhyama Vani, Pashyanti Vani. Beyond that is Para. Para is Brahma. Om is Vaikhari, Madhyama, Pashyanti, all these together. Just to give us the idea that Brahman is this and even beyond this. Purusha Suktam says, Purusham evedagam sarvam atyattishta dashangulam, it says. No, all this is Purusha and 10 fingers beyond that, it says. Just to give the idea that everything is encompassed in the Purusha, the Atman, and Atman extends it by 10 fingers, they say. It is a symbolic way of saying that the Brahman encompasses everything and extends beyond. It's beyond the all seen and unseen things. It's beyond. So Om is beyond the sounds. That is the true nature of Om. That is why I said fourth one, or one, the silence, this is the substratum from which all the sounds come and disappear. That substratum is the real significance of Om. But we can't understand silence, therefore we are made to think, okay, jagrata avastha comes and goes, swapna avastha comes and goes, sushupti avastha comes and goes, turiya stays. So that is the idea of telling the Om. Like if you have to tell, I always say, if you have to tell somebody, I am a man, you should not, that is half truth. The other truth is, I am a man, not an animal. Likewise, I am silence, not the sounds. So for that I should know what are sounds. So for that sake, sounds have been told, but the true, deepest meaning of Omkara is that it encompasses all the waking, dreaming and deep sleep state and the beyond. So it is like a bag in which everything has been kept. So everything is also in the bag and bag is also in the bag. Like that is the nature of Omkara. It is to be thought that way. We conclude Arti with chanting Samasta Loka. So what about those 14 lokas? Are they there, not there? If so, then why is it that we pray for all the lokas, lower lokas also? See, thing is that all these lokas exist for the one who believes in it. You are sitting in the class, listening. Now you are supposed to be in the Bhuloka, in the class Loka, let us say. So you are sitting in the maths class Loka, and the maths teacher is going on and on with some calculus. But in between, what happens? You switch off, and now you are in your home. Your mother is preparing hot dosas, and then she's putting on the plate saying, eat two more, and you are eating, I 2, 3, and you're eating and eating and eating, till a chalk lands on your head. You're back in maths loka. Otherwise, which loka you were in? Home loka, dosa loka. That's all is the lokas. The mind, after body is not there, where does this mind go? It keeps thinking of all kinds of things. Whatever it has desired for in the physical world when you were there, after dropping the body, the desires are still there in the mind. That is why people become pretas, their desires are not fulfilled. So they keep haunting other people. Because the unfulfilled desires take them to different lokas. Some people wanted to experience something very tasty, so their mind will be only roaming around near kitchen, dining hall, and hotels, restaurants. Their mind is filled with that. So they will be born accordingly. Born means they are not really born, they are transferred. Their mind is transferred. Like while sitting physically in the maths class, your mind got transferred to your home. Like that, after death, body ceases to exist, your mind gets transferred to different places according to your likes, dislikes that you have developed. So that only is loka. It's not a physical place where it exists that after 10 kilometers, one loka comes, and 10 kilometers deep you drill into the earth, second loka will come. Not like that. It's a state of mind. Like when you are happy, you say Swarga, I am in Swarga. When you are sad, you think this is only Narka. My home is Narka, you say, when you are not happy. My father is only Yamaraja, you will say. But when you are happy, everything is nice. You don't believe that anything else. You are very happy in that state. So mind is the one which transfers from one loka to the other. And because there are people who have not yet understood Brahma Jnana, their minds are still shifting between this and that. That's why we pray for all of them who are stuck in all their minds, thinking that this is good, that is not good, this is what I like, that is not like. For all those people who are suffering with this ajnana, we pray samasta loka. Let all those people in wherever their minds are stuck, let them realize that truth is Brahma Jnana, and that's how they become happy. That is the only way to become truly happy. So loka sukhino means sukha. The true sukha is that when you realize you are divine and neither sukha nor dukkha, nothing affects you, that is permanent. So for that sake we pray. So you will say in Bhuloka people are suffering with body consciousness, so they suffer with diseases, sickness. Okay, pray for them that they rise above it. In other lokas, as I said, that the mind has got transferred or shifted after your death. There are people going through other kind of experiences. Let us pray for them too. Our Pitrus are there, they are hanging around in Pitruloka. They are still attached to us, they are concerned about us. So we do Pitrudana, Pitruyagnya, all kinds of things we do to satisfy them. Because mentally they are able to experience us. Truth is that what is all the world? Is it not just the mind? Your experiences are just your mind. Suppose somebody has a very crooked mind. For him, doing crooked things is happiness. Somebody who has a very pure mind, for them, doing crooked things is unhappiness. So each person's mind is the reason for how they experience the world. Duryodhana went and said, I can't find one good person in this town. Dharmaraja went and said, I can't find one bad person in this town. Same town. Duryodhana says, I think the only good person is me. And Dharmaraja says, the only bad person is me. Their mindset. So what is this world? You think there is joy in that burger and coffee? It's your mind. Somebody who does not like coffee, the South Indian people who don't like North Indian food, they will be tortured if they're giving North Indian food. Bring a Westerner and give him idli, sambar, rasam, he will suffer. He'll say, is there any bread? Is there any butter? Some toast? So everything is experience of our mind, how we have trained our mind. The Western fellow has got trained eating Western food and now he cannot appreciate Indian food. Indian fellow has got trained eating Indian food, cannot appreciate Western food. It doesn't mean that Western food is bad, Indian food is good. That is again your imagination. Therefore, everything depends on the mind. Whole idea is to purify this mind so that it doesn't have to get transferred from one thing to the other. It completely dissolves and only Brahman manifests. That extent we have to take our mind to. In fact, the next shlokas of Kathopanishad is about that, how to bring mind to that state. Third question, Swami, Brahman created the world, put some rules, dharma, adharma, and gave some attributes, kosha, buddhi, etc. to realize the truth. Have you created any other world in same way, in analogy, like a game developer who creates a variety of games with lot of rules and options? See, in the game, you're playing a game in the computer. There are characters, there are situations, and there are decisions. Are they all real? Are those characters real? Are the decisions real? Is that city inside which that game is going on is real? Nothing is real. It's in the computer. It's actually an imagination. Like this, the whole world is just an imagination. Whether more imagination is there, yes, each of the character has his own imagination. Therefore, they have their own worlds. We are actually a conglomeration of infinite worlds, where every person creates his or her own world around herself or himself. And he or her creates her own rules about it. Like a person who has a house, the father has a rule. Nobody will watch TV after 9 o'clock. Everybody will wake up at 5 o'clock. So a world of its own. Satyasai Grama is a world of its own within a world with its own rules. Bangalore is a world of its own within its own rules. In Bangalore, somebody's house in an apartment is its own world. And each of the apartment in a big complex of apartments is its own rules based on that husband, wife or father, mother, whoever has created. So this world is like that, one into the other, one into the other. So have you created more worlds? There was no need to create. In fact, truth is that even this world is not created. This is uncreated world which you think is created. There was nothing created ever. This is all a dream. In a dream, what is created? You sleep and dream. You go to a beautiful golden city, the walls are of gold, the doors are made of gems, and what is created? Nothing is created. It's just an imagination, like you're playing a game. As long as you play the game and you entertain yourself, it's fine. But the moment you start saying, no, my character is losing, my character is getting killed, my character, then you suffer. So nothing has been created, that is the truth. That will become a little too much of Vedanta for you right now. So we will settle down with sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So yes, there is a physical world created like this, and then there are some other worlds based on your mind. You keep shifting to other worlds, Datala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, whatever, and above Burbhuvasva, Mahajana, Tapa, Satyam, and beyond that there is the Brahmaloka, and beyond that is Parabrahman. Think like that and leave it at this, because beyond that, if I tell you now, I'm sure half of you will not understand one. Second thing, if you misunderstand, that will be a bigger problem. Nothing exists. So tomorrow morning, I'm not coming for the class only. Class doesn't exist. You don't exist. I don't exist. So you'll misunderstand it because you have to mature to understand what I'm saying. But Shankaracharya says, Vishwam Nagari Darpanam Drishyamana Nagari Tulya Vishwam. Vishwa is just a reflection in a mirror. Inside the mirror, things look 10 feet deep, 20 feet deep, green, blue, red. They are really not there. The only difference between this mirror and the physical mirror is this mirror produces images out of its own. The other mirrors have to reflect something. Here it just produces its own images. Therefore, this is not true. However, if you must believe, then yes, this is the physical world created in which we are living right now. And when we mentally sleep, we go to other worlds too. And when we die, body drops, mind shifts from world to world according to its likes and dislikes. And according to yatha karma, yatha shrutam, it is said, as it is done and it is understood about life. If we keep looking for the divinity in the outside, how would we be able to realize for the divinity within? Truth is neither divinity is outside nor within. You are divinity. So what are you looking for? What are you looking for outside? Can you look for outside? Can you look for yourself outside you? Can you look for yourself inside you? Both are not true. You are. The moment you know you are, you already found yourself. Where are you searching? At a very physical, simple level. You can't look for yourself outside yourself. You can't look for yourself inside yourself. Where do you look for yourself? You don't have to look for yourself, because if you are alive, you know you are. Likewise, you are not looking for God outside you or inside you. You are God, you are Brahman at all times. Therefore, there is no looking. This whole business of looking is the misconception. It also will come in the next sloka now. This whole business of searching is misconception. But again, as I said, it is getting to much deeper Vedanta. So what you understand is like this, fine. This cover which is lying on this truth by my body consciousness, my desires, my disturbed mind, this is the reason why I am not able to understand the truth as it is. When I understand the truth, I know there is nothing to look outside, there is nothing to look inside. You are that, so what are you searching for? You go to your teacher. Teacher asks you, what are you so worried about in the morning? I lost myself, I am searching for myself today. Oh, look in the kitchen, maybe you are there. No, look in the classroom, maybe you are there. How true it is, you tell me. Like that, if you go to God and search, I am searching for God. You are God, what are you searching for? That is the highest thought of Vedanta. A wrong guru will teach you. Oh, you lost yourself. Maybe give me 100 rupees, I will tell you. I will do a puja, then you will find yourself. Do this, I will give you upadesha, then you will find yourself. You are you. What have you lost? But a foolish fellow will tell you, I'm so sad that you lost yourself. Let us find you. Come with me, we will find you. You are not searching for, you are God, but you don't know you are God, that's why you are searching. You think you exist elsewhere. You don't exist elsewhere. Neither you exist outside, nor you exist inside. You exist as God. That is why I said consciousness does not happen to you, does not happen by you, does not happen through you. It happens as you. When you say it happens to me, then you will search outside. When you think it happens by me, you will search inside. And when you think you are consciousness, there is no searching. The inside is God, outside is God, the door sill is God, everything is God. So there is no searching after that. You think you have to sit and think about these things. It won't just happen by my telling once. After Omkara, we are to observe silence. However, since the mind is so used to thinking and observing, it's difficult. When we observe silence, we are aware of our breath and other sensation in our body. Can we be aware of nothing at this stage? See, awareness of breath means what? It means what? You have supplied a word called breath. You have supplied a form called your breath. That is not meditation. Mind has to become amani bhava, na dvaita uplabhyate, it says. When mind becomes no mind, that is when dualities don't exist. So very fact that you're observing your breath means your mind is busy. It's just that it is not thinking of your past and future and your wife and children and your work and salary and problems in life, but it is thinking still. The moment mind stops completely thinking, it becomes zero, that is samadhi, that is meditation.